Imagine wanting to be a writer so badly that you spend 15 years buying 23 books on the craft.
23?
23, and attending seminars and talking about it constantly, and never once sitting down to write a single word.
That's painful to even think about.
It's the guitar gathering dust in the corner, the degree application sitting in your desk drawer for 6 weeks, the quiet pile of unfinished business almost every adult carries.
And the debate today isn't whether the gap is real, it's very real. It's what actually keeps us from crossing it.
You're listening to Paya Talks. Big ideas, both sides, real depth, from Paya Academy.
I'm Dr. Farzin.
And I'm Sophia. Today's question: when you want something for years but never do it, what's really stopping you? A missing system or unfinished inner work? It comes from Chapter 10 of The Life Skills Gap by clinical psychologist Leila Shakeri.
I'll argue the real bottleneck is deeper, unresolved fear and meaning you haven't made peace with yet.
And I'll argue it's structural. You cross the gap by handing your choices over to specific cues, not by trying harder. Let's get into it. Start with where the usual advice, just try harder, completely falls apart. Helena, the woman with the 23 books, wanted to write every day for 15 years. Society says she didn't want it enough, but her desire was continuous. What she lacked was an architecture. The moment she built a rigid implementation intention, the drought broke. She specified, "I will write Tuesday and Thursday mornings at my desk for 30 minutes, right after coffee, and walking the dog." By handing the behavior to the situation, she prepaid the cognitive cost. Structure was the catalyst, not a sudden epiphany.
You say she prepaid the cognitive cost, but that underplays 15 years inside her head. I don't see 23 books as a failure of architecture. I see them as monuments to ambivalence. Shakeri warns readers not to jump to implementation intentions, the action stage stuff, while they're still in contemplation. Helena wasn't just tired of deciding when to write, she was terrified of the identity shift. What if she was bad at it? You can't hand a map to someone who hasn't accepted the fears and losses of the destination. They'll just put it in the drawer with the books.
I get that, but look at why the map works neurologically, not philosophically. Goal intentions like, "I want to be a writer," fail because they float unanchored in an ordinary day. No trigger. So every day is a fresh crossroads, and your thinking brain has to choose the hard path over and over. That's decision fatigue, a heavy background app draining your battery before you even open the thing you wanted to do. Shakeri's rigid structure ties the action to an already built pathway, like your morning coffee. The coffee and the dog walk do the heavy lifting. The environment becomes the trigger, bypassing the ambivalence entirely.
But did it bypass the ambivalence? Or did that one Tuesday in February happen to be the moment the ambivalence finally resolved? Prochaska's model is clear. In contemplation, your brain is weighing the return on a massive identity shift. You can't shortcut that. Hand an if-then script to someone who doesn't believe at their core that they're ready for the cost of change, and it collapses. If you've been stuck for years, the problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough at the action stage. It's that the contemplation work hasn't finished baking.
Let's look at how we cross that threshold. And I'd say it's far more mechanical than you think. Part of Shakeri's canvas is the anchor, one human being you check in with every 90 days. We both know the data. Sharing a goal dramatically increases follow-through. Why? It engineers friction. You make a private intention public, which raises the social cost of quitting so high that doing the work becomes the path of least resistance. Pure architecture.
But look at who Helena chose. Not a life coach, not an app that charges you $1 per missed session. Her oldest friend, someone who'd known her since university, who'd listened to her agonize about writing for 3 decades. You're reducing that to a penalty clause. On a human level, what's actually happening is identity integration.
It can be both, but the primary mechanism is accountability. Carey says the anchor doesn't have to be a therapist. They don't do any heavy emotional lifting. They just have to ask every 90 days.
Yes, but the act of asking a lifelong friend to be that person is rooted in meaning. Frankl taught that we're driven by a will to meaning. By sharing this with someone who holds 30 years of her history, Helena tied the action to meaning. She was stepping into an identity she'd deferred for 15 years and asking someone she loved to witness it. Strip that down to social cost, and you ignore the emotional bedrock that keeps the behavior alive when it gets hard.
I think we have to be careful not to over-romanticize this, because romanticizing it is exactly what traps people in the gap. Tell the listener with a business plan in their drawer that they need a profound integration of identity and meaning to act, and they'll keep waiting for an epiphany that never comes. Look at Maria. She wants to teach adult literacy. The application sits in her drawer for 6 weeks. Does she need an existential awakening to fill it out? No. She used a tiny, specific implementation intention. Tonight, after dinner, before I check the news, I'll sit at the kitchen table and fill it in. She didn't even commit to mailing it. She lowered the stakes to almost nothing. Just the physical paperwork. 2 days later, she mailed it. Structure wins.
But you're starting halfway through the story. Why did Maria want this in the first place? Because, as Shakari details, she'd already done the grueling values work in the previous chapter. She'd resolved her ambivalence. The application sitting there for 6 weeks was just the friction between preparation and action. I'm not denying the implementation intention was the key that unlocked the door. But if she hadn't already anchored herself in the deep value of literacy, sitting at that table would have produced nothing but doodles. The key is useless without the door.
But that's exactly my point. So many people have the door built, values clarified, and they still won't turn the key because they think wanting to go inside should be enough to open it. And push it into the action stage, how we handle the inevitable failures. Shakari says the action stage lasts 3 to 6 months, and lapses are a statistical certainty. If you're relying on deep meaning to sustain you, a lapse is devastating. It means you failed your values. But architecture survives a lapse through contingency planning. If I miss Tuesday, I won't skip the week. I pick up Thursday. Pre-loaded decisions protect the behavior. And protected behavior eventually shifts your identity into the maintenance stage. The identity follows the action.
It sounds clean because it is clean, but humans aren't algorithms. When we fail at something we deeply care about, we feel shame. And you can't program a contingency plan for shame. If someone hasn't tapped their core values, a lapse triggers a full regression. The shame of missing Tuesday won't make them politely reschedule, it'll convince them they were foolish to ever try. They slide all the way back and put the application in the drawer. The structural plan shatters on impact if it isn't insulated by self-compassion. And that only comes from understanding your worth independent of one missed performance.
And I'd argue relying on meaning is what causes the shame spiral in the first place. When your whole identity is on the line every Tuesday, missing it feels like failing at being a writer. But when the goal is just Tuesdays at 7, I write for 30 minutes, and you miss, you didn't fail at being a writer. You missed a Tuesday. The implementation intention shrinks the failure. Helena's rule was that the 30 minutes didn't even have to be good. They just had to happen. By stripping the pressure of meaning and quality out of the moment, The structure protects the ego.
It protects the ego, so the meaning has room to breathe. Maybe. But be honest about what the book asks. Step 2 of the canvas is identifying your stage of change. If you're in contemplation, Shaker explicitly forbids writing an implementation intention. She makes you write down the gains, the losses, the fears, and the cost of staying exactly as you are. That's confronting the existential weight of your own life. You can't bypass that with a clever calendar invite. The structure is the bridge, but a bridge needs bedrock, and the bedrock is resolved ambivalence.
And my counter is simple. A foundation isn't a bridge. You can sit on your bedrock of resolved ambivalence for 15 years, clutching 23 books, completely paralyzed, because you lack the machinery to cross. The myth of willpower is dead. The idea that you just find your why and the how takes care of itself is dead. Delegating choices to cues is what actually gets us moving.
And I'd summarize mine: the machinery of when, where, and what is necessary. I grant that completely, but it's dangerous as a standalone cure. Deep meaning, resolved fear, values woven into your community, those are the fuel that decides whether the machinery has any power to run.
Where we fully converge is the rejection of the standard advice. Telling someone stuck in the gap to just try harder, be more disciplined, stop being lazy, it's unsupported and actively harmful.
Crossing the gap is a learnable, step-by-step process, not an innate trait you're born with or without. Whether you optimize your architecture to bypass fatigue or do the inner work to resolve your fear, the path forward means abandoning the idea that you're just flawed. You aren't broken because you haven't done the thing yet.
So think about the application in your drawer, the guitar in the corner, the unfinished business.
Because the gap only gets wider every year you don't cross it. Whether you need a better map to bypass the exhaustion or you need to finally face the fear of the destination, you have the tools to begin.
You just have to decide what you're actually afraid of and set the conditions to step through it.
If you want to sit with this properly, it's chapter 10 of The Life Skills Gap by Leila Shakri, with more on turning intention into action over at Paya Academy.
That's it for this episode of Paya Talks. Next time, the two clocks, money and time, that keep us feeling like there's never enough.
Until then, be safe.